I love NetherRealm games, I really do. But love has no place on YouTube. That stuff doesn't get views, so instead, let's celebrate the most toxic characters in NetherRealm history. We're talking brain-dead characters that are super easy to use and abuse, whether it's the same move over and over again or even breaking the game itself. A toxic character gives power to the nastiest of players, and there's one in every single game, so let's talk about him after a quick word from today's sponsor.
Cease before you doom us all!
So are you just gonna keep doing this like every week? Or
No, it can't be. It's
awesome anime apparel at KaiokenClothing.com with 5% off any purchase by using code DOG. These guys deliver worldwide and offer an incredible selection of clothing to satisfy your otaku needs. Me personally, I love My Hero Academia and Dragon Ball Z, and all the designs are made in-house and there's tons of reviews as well. So make sure to satiate your love for anime and save money while doing it with Kaioken Clothing. Okay, so let's start off where everything began, Mortal Kombat 9. Now keep in mind that every character in this game is busted in one way or another. So if you want detailed videos on how every character in this game was overpowered, then please check out a fantastic channel called Rio MK. He goes into great detail about all of these characters and just how busted they were. However, today's video is talking about toxic characters, so first up we have Johnny Cage. This move right here, 4-3. This thing is already neutral on block, so no advantage, but it is 9 frames, so pretty darn fast. If you want to interrupt it, you have to go for a fast poke. However, the follow-ups are just as powerful, so the full string, also completely safe and ends in an overhead too, so don't crouch, you're gonna get hit. And that becomes a problem because I can cancel the first 2 hits into this special move, and now I'm plus, which means I can just do this string again. So in other words, that whole thing was guaranteed, and look at all of that block damage. Do you see that? Our boy Noob Saibot just took over 10% block damage, and keep in mind he couldn't press any buttons there, he would have gotten counter hit. And this move had different follow-ups too. You could go for 4-3-2 and all that stuff, but to me 4-3-3 is where it was at, because once again, super good in the neutral, great range, neutral on block, but here is the craziest part. For whatever reason, MK9 had random frame data. Yes, random frame data, which means this move could either be 0 for Johnny Cage or plus 10 on block, which means he can just keep doing it, and you as the opponent never know if he's plus or if he's neutral, which of course means the opponent is always in a dangerous situation, whereas the Johnny Cage player isn't, because for him the worst it gets is neutral, so he's never punishable. You can go for a fast move and maybe interrupt him, but if luck's on his side, he's at plus 10 and you just get hit for a full combo. And all this time you're taking block damage and he's building meter, which means he can do this, which means he can do it again, and all that crazy stuff. And you might be thinking, okay, well, I'll just run away the whole time and try to zone him. And that could be an okay idea, but just keep in mind if Johnny Cage touches you ever with any combo, he can just end with the nut punch. And this thing holds you in place, and he can't combo you after this, but you are forced to block whatever he does next. So for example, if Johnny Cage was to land this string, and then go for this, that's a true block string. You had to block there. I'm not sure why the AI isn't blocking. It's set to auto, but MK9's an old game, so just bear with me. The point is pretty much anything Johnny Cage did here was guaranteed. In fact, Johnny Cage could land the nut punch and then jump over you, and you were forced to block that as well. So while this nut punch couldn't combo like it does in future games, it did force you to stand there and block whatever he did next, which means he could do this and just keep badgering you, and maybe he's a plus 10, or maybe he's a neutral, you have no way of knowing, or he forces you to block, and if he has the meter, does this, and you're forced to block him all over again. And keep in mind, this is all one button. I'm not having to mix things up whatsoever, so any beginner could make this work very easily, but put it in the hands of a good player who also has combos, and you have constant strings that end with a nut punch, and then you're restood and forced to deal with the pressure all over again. So yes, Johnny Cage was very toxic in this game, not just due to his amazing pressure and all of his annoying restands, but also the fact that he had random frame data, which is absurdly unfair. And Johnny isn't the only character that had it, but I feel like his was the easiest to get going. So you can imagine why Johnny Cage was one of the most hated matchups for many pro players. Some of them were even breaking their controllers over this guy because he was just so frustrating to deal with. Oh man, but then we have Doomsday. Where to begin with this guy? He definitely was a casual player's best friend, and I don't mean that in a rude way to the players, it's just clear that he was designed that way. Well, we might as well start off with the unblockable. I know a ton of you hate Shiva right now. Well, look at Doomsday. His is even faster, and best of all, it hits on the way up too. So this thing was actually a good way to end long combos, especially in the corner, because you didn't want to give up corner advantage. Now, he had to spend meter if he actually wanted to track you with it, so that's at least one nice thing. It cost him something, but it's still an unblockable attack that has a really big hitbox. Look at that. You'd think I didn't hit you because Doomsday didn't hit you, but no, it looks like my shockwave can hit you too. So this thing had a huge hitbox. It hit on the way up as well. So if you weren't ready to react on a block string even, like say like I just do this, and you're not ready for it, uh-oh, unblockable. You had the dash almost right away there too. That thing came out quick. Or after a poke even like this, look out, unblockable. So all the time you had to watch out for this thing, and if you wanted to play keep away, you couldn't because boop, I tried your location and now here I am. So it goes without saying that unblockable was really, really good at being toxic, but that's not even why this character was ridiculous. So check out this move. Look on screen, overhead and then low. So imagine just trying to block that thing, especially in a bad netcode. That's going to be difficult, right? Like stuff like this. And that's a true combo in this game. In the Injustice games, down ones do combo, but imagine you're blocking it instead. Did you block that? Let's be honest, did you block that? I mean, maybe you did, but there are so many shenanigans, like this string right here, it ends with an unblockable. So you might neutral duck because you want to avoid that, but you'd be wrong to do so because that's an overhead and then a low. And this thing is really good on hit too. Like I can dash forward and I'm still safe. I can block if I want to and you're just blocking. I can throw you any number of things. It recovers so quickly and is so good on hit. And you're likely thinking this move is unsafe on block just because it's so ridiculous. No, it's safe. It's completely safe on block, so the only way you could avoid this thing if you couldn't block it is use the push block, which costs you a bar. So if you're cornered and you really want Doomsday off of you, you have to spin the bar. And this move gets even dirtier because if I knock you down and go for it early, it's just a low. There was no overhead there, just a low. So if you stood blocked, you just got hit there because there was no overhead. And then if you start blocking the low correctly, I just delay it. And now it is an overhead low. So that's just ridiculous. And I would argue those special moves are the most toxic thing about Doomsday, but it just keeps coming with this guy. So for one thing, his Venom tackle, this thing, if I amplify it, I'm at +6. I'm at +6, so normally this move is punishable. But if I spin the bar, it's suddenly not punishable and it's plus, which means I can just go for it again. And look at that, you're all the way in the corner. If you pressed any buttons there, you were going to get counter hit. So instead you blocked, which should be the right decision, but now you're in the corner, so it's not much better because now I can just do this over and over again. And if you think pro players didn't do this, you're completely wrong. Even at the highest level of play, this was still happening. They would just mix it up with things like a down one, or they would do the 2-2 mix up, because once again, there was the unblockable, or there was the overhead low mix-up. They would do this over and over again, or they'd do it early so it's just a low, so they'd knock you down, and it's a low. They'd knock you down, now it's an overhead low. They would do this over and over again. So if this stuff worked on pro players, you can rest assured it worked on casual players online as well, or even decent players. All you needed was a bad connection, and this was pretty much unblockable. And there was one more final thing that made Doomsday just that much more toxic, his trait. So this move gave him armor that kept him from being knocked down or launched. Now don't misunderstand, it wasn't like Bane's Venom where he could just armor through a move. If he had this activated and you hit him, he would stop. It would actually interrupt whatever he was doing. However, even so, this armor meant that you could not do anything on Wake Up because most invincible moves on Wake Up were punishable on hit when he had this armor activated. So right now I'm telling Deathstroke to do a Wake Up move and it's really good. So if I'm doing anything, that move just wins. That's his sword flip. It's really good. But now I have armor activated. Don't do that. I told you not to. And look at that, he just crossed over me completely, so he couldn't do anything on Wake Up. If he does, I'm gonna recover before him. Now there were some characters who had invincible attacks that were also safe. It usually cost meter, but for the most part, if Doomsday had armor and then knocked you down, he could just do anything, because he armored through it no matter what. If you did anything that was invincible, chances are that on hit, he could still punish it. So I don't think I'm being too harsh when I say that Doomsday was one of the most toxic characters in any NetherRealm game. And now we are in MKX, or as I call it, Melina's home. I miss you, girl. I miss you so much, but too bad your fandom is super toxic. But I digress. Let's talk about Jackie, more specifically her full auto variation. Man, that walk animation is just terrible, but it's fast though. Look how fast it is, and that's a good thing because in this variation, she has this. This is just ridiculous. I don't know why NetherRealm keeps putting moves like this in their game because this thing is so active for so long that most characters can't even jump over this thing unless they have some sort of air dash or flight. They're getting hit by this thing every time they try to jump. And real quick, just look how fast this thing recovers. I can just keep doing it. And I'm getting it super early. Look at all that damage. She's almost half dead. Now it is a high attack, so you could duck it to be sure, but I can just amplify. And now you're taking even more damage. And look at all that pushback. You're sent almost full screen. So if you somehow make it really close to Jackie and she just snags you, whether it's a string or you just fall on these, she amplifies, and now you're pretty much all the way back at square one. You're full screen once again. And let's go ahead and see what the pushback is on this thing on block, because I'm just curious. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell her to duck. And once again, you can duck these, but you have to neutral duck them. I almost forgot that. If you crouch block, these will still push you back. Look at all that chip too. Look at all the chip damage. That's also worth mentioning. Oh my god. Already almost 20% dead. That's ridiculous. But if I amplify, you have to block that. Look at all the pushback. Look at all that pushback. And this is why I didn't bring up Deathstroke for Injustice 1. I think he was pretty toxic too. But to me, this is even worse because there's just no effort required here. I can just keep doing this over and over again. And every single time you block my stuff, I build meter too. That's also worth mentioning. Where are the meter settings at? Okay, so I have 1 bar and Cassie's blocking. Look at all this meter. Look at all that I'm building. If I make you block this just a few times, I have a bar, which means, boop, I can spend it. And even that amplified still gave me meter in a way because it's still a move you had to block. So I can just keep doing this and I'm building meter the entire time, and you're already almost dead. Look at that. If you were playing a character that was linear like Cassie Cage, you just struggled so hard in this matchup and you pretty much had to switch characters. And I suppose I should also mention the anti-airs because Jackie has that. So if you try to jump in, she can catch you with this, and this stuff leads to combos too. So she has some really good combo potential even in this variation. She just also has absurdly brain dead keep away as well. And it's a real shame because Jackie had some really legit variations in this game, including her shotgun variation, which was super fun. Though to be fair, that variation was kind of like Johnny Cage and MK9, so still very toxic, but it felt a bit more earned because you had to do the frame traps and the crazy combos. Whereas in this variation, it's just the same move over and over again. If you block, I'll spend the meter. If you get closer, I'll walk backward. And she also has moves to catch you when you're too close as well. All that dirty stuff. So she had a lot of stuff going for her in this variation. And since it was all very, very easy to do, that is what made it feel especially toxic. She could win from full screen and it didn't take any effort whatsoever. And of course, I have to talk about Deadshot in Injustice 2. I have a special hatred in my heart for this guy because this character was ruining nearly every tournament when Injustice 2 first came out. Basically, this guy was all over top 8, and in fact, there was a bunch of mirror matches because nobody knew how to counter him without also using him, or they'd pick Harley Quinn sometimes. But essentially, if you had a main and then the opponent picked Deadshot, you either had to also pick Deadshot or switch to a character that specifically countered him because your main most likely wasn't going to work against him. But let's go ahead and look at every single move, shall we? Just to give you a good idea of how toxic this guy was. You think Deathstroke was bad? You think Jackie was bad? Nah, this guy is both of them doing a fusion dance. So for starters, we have the wrist cannon. This is pretty much the most innocent projectile he has. It just seems like a regular high attack. But what made it annoying is he can combo into it and then back away. And look at all the distance he has, and he can just keep doing that. He can walk away while also shooting at you, which is quite strong. And that was important because he also had bullet barrage, and as you can see, he backs up already while doing this by default. So pretty much Jackie's move, only he steps back while doing it, which was very frustrating, but it was slow enough that you couldn't combo into it in a lot of situations, and that's why you needed the wrist cannon. And then we have trick shot. So this thing is perhaps one of the most annoying tools that he actually has because it hits mid, so you have to deal with this thing. You can duck the wrist cannon, you can duck the bullet barrage, but you cannot duck the trick shot. And you can also aim this thing too, so if you're closer, he has what's essentially an anti-air. This thing's pretty darn strong. If you're further away, he has the regular version. If you're further than that, he has a far version, and then if you're full screen, he has an option for that too. Yes, this guy can check you from full screen, which is quite ridiculous. And he can amplify every single one of these, and look at all that damage from full screen with a mid. This thing was just ridiculous. I think it's by far one of his best keep away tools. Because keep in mind, he can just keep doing this thing. If it hits, he pretty much guarantees the follow-up. If you block it, then yes, you may have a way to escape, but if he lands the hit, the second one is pretty much guaranteed. Oh my god, but then we had Deadly Assault. This thing was ridiculous. It hits low, and it hits over and over again if you amplify. And this was pretty much guaranteed block damage. If he knocked you down, he could just go for this, and you had to block the entire thing, assuming you blocked the first hit. And what's even crazier is that because it lasts for so long, just like Jackie and MKX, if you tried to jump over this thing without an air dash or a flight or a teleport, then you were pretty much guaranteed to land on these bullets. And we didn't even talk about the pushback. Check out the pushback. Look at that. But that's not the straw that broke the camel's back, at least not in my opinion. No, this character also had an invincible wake up that he could spin the bar on, and it was safe with a decent amount of pushback. So -3, and it's invincible on wake up, and it pushes you away. They gave this to a keep away character. A keep away character, the one character who's supposed to ride his will when you catch up to him or have him cornered. But no, this guy always had an invincible wake up that he could also spin the bar to keep himself safe. That is just egregious, my goodness. And this thing also knocked you away on hit as well and gave him time to set up his keep away. Like, look how much advantage I have there. So I could have done this. And you just kind of wake up into that and just have to deal with it. So that's crazy, right? And then in the corner, this thing starts combos because Deadshot has combos despite being a keep away character. And he also has 50-50, so a low overhead, right? Or just a low. A lot of players would do that. They go low, and then they catch you and finish the combo, or they do low overhead and then they'd catch you. So yeah, this character was absolutely ridiculous. I think this character was perhaps the farthest NetherRealm has ever gone to making a ridiculously good keep away character. And on top of good keep away, he also had the wake ups and the combos, just pretty much everything. This guy had it all. And once again, that's why he dominated tournaments. He was all over grand finals. He was just littering the top 8 with all of his trash gameplay, man. It was ridiculous. So forgive me if I sound a bit salty, but this guy was especially toxic. Whether you were a casual or a pro player, he just had everything and it was brain dead. And that's about it for the video, everyone. I didn't include MK11 because I've made hundreds of videos on that game already. Plus, I also feel like that game is fairly balanced at this point, whereas all the characters in this video are still toxic even after all the updates. So please post in the comments which character you think is the most toxic, and also leave a like if you enjoyed the video as well. And why not keep that combo going by subscribing and ringing that bell? That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.